I have this dress that I want to make. I have one little problem. Not that. This. North Carolinians get made fun of frequently for being incapable of functioning in any level of snowy or icy weather, which is totally true because usually we get such a small amount and then it is 50 degrees the next day and we don't have to worry about dealing with it. But now we have been going through a week plus of icy and snowy precipitation on the ground, so we're having to figure out how to function in it. It's actually some of the most gorgeous powdery snow I've ever experienced. It's the first time I've ever seen snow like this on our property, and it is very exciting. However, I want to work on a new dress concept that I have not been able to get out of my head. The problem is my studio is an uninsulated, unheated metal and concrete structure. Needless to say, it is bitter cold in there, and usually this time of year I find other things to do that are not in my studio, but I really want to make this dress. So I'm going to start with telling you my concept, and then my husband has a music studio on the property, and I asked him yesterday if he would help me do a temporary setup in there so that I could work in there. So I'm going to be working a little bit modularly, a little bit limited than my usual fabulous sewing studio, but I think it's going to be worth it to continue to sew. I actually have been feeling a little unsettled lately and feeling a little out of balance, and I honestly think it's because I haven't been sewing. So I'm really looking forward to jumping into that today. My name is Ann Tilley. If you're new here, I'm a textile artist and clothing designer, and I design and sell my original sewing patterns on my website, AnnTilleyHandmade.com. And today we are working with one of those patterns, the throwback dress, that I want to modify a little bit and make into a very special patchworky dress. I'm kind of thinking very vintage circus vibe. Let me take you over the table and show you what I'm talking about. So this is the dress I want to make. Normally the throwback dress has a scooped neckline so that you can throw it over your head. But what I want to do is I want to change it into a high neckline. I want to go up to a mock turtleneck vibe up here, which is going to create some shaping, which we're going to be able to do with the patchworking. And then I want to create sort of this radiating pinwheel patchworking that goes all the way down the dress in a black and white. Then when I thought about the patchworking idea, I was like, oh, it would be so easy to kind of add a little bit of scallop detail at these patchwork spots. And then to get in and out of the dress, we're gonna keep, part of this patchwork seam right here, we're gonna make into a keyhole and then do some sort of maybe hook and eye closure here. So my first thought was, okay, I want black and white. I didn't really know what kind of fabrics I wanted to do. So once I figured out the concept, then I had to think about fabrics. And for some reason, my mind went to taffeta, which is not a material that I've ever worked with before, but for some reason I just thought it would bring this level of sheen and polish to the design. And I also was excited with trying to work with a new material. So my first thought was, the black and white. One of my New Year's resolutions is to slow down and be more diligent with my makes. So I saw that as taking the time to order swatches first before ordering my yardage. So the first thing I did was get a white and an ivory to see if I would prefer the slightly off white, and I think I do. I think that the white is a little too optic, but I like this ivory choice. So I committed to this, and then to line the dress and make it reversible, I thought it would be really fun to pick a red, because I'm thinking that might, have the potential to peep out a touch, around the hems here. I picked two different red options based on the online colors, and I definitely prefer the Tango. I think it again reinforces sort of the vintage quality and kind of goes with these. So these are my three fabric choices. So this is going to be the reversible side in a solid red, and then we're going to patchwork the black and ivory. And luckily I've already ordered this yardage and it has successfully come in. I've acquired it. So that's good with this wintry weather. I don't know a whole lot about taffeta. For one thing, I mean, we can see this without even reading about it, is that it has absolutely no stretch whatsoever, no ease. I mean, actually, maybe just the slightest bit of ease right here. Maybe I'll use a easier to see color. So there's actually an ever so slight ease in this one direction and then zero ease here. So I need to make sure that my pattern is not relying on ease for fit. And this dress pattern is designed for a no stretch woven. So we shouldn't have any problems with working with the pattern in our appropriate size. It also has a slight sheen to it, which I think is really beautiful. You can especially see it in this tango red. So I like that. Let's see what the Bible has to tell us about sewing with taffeta. So the 1970s Reader's Digest Guide to Sewing says taffeta, brocade, or satin. So I wonder if brocade and satin are the fabric structure, or maybe taffeta can come as a brocade or a satin. That's probably what it means. Stitching can be stitched only once. Removed stitches will leave holes. Dang, okay. Well, that's something to be aware of from the beginning. Should be handled as little as possible because it wrinkles and soils easily.
Taffeta, darling.
Taffeta, sweetheart?
No, the dress is taffeta. It wrinkles so easily.
Oh.
Also, it does not ease well. That makes sense because it feels like a very, very rigid material. So like it would make sense that it doesn't ease. Pressing may water spot. Ugh, I hate water spots. Use a dry iron at low temperatures. I probably should use low temperatures anyways because I'm working with a polyester. Tip of iron should be used for opening seams, a press cloth, and light touch for other areas. Folded edges should not be flattened. I don't know what that means. Covering ironing board with thick pad or towel helps prevent flattening. I don't really know what that means. Maybe we'll figure it out together. The throwback dress is actually cut out like the way you would cut out a circle skirt. So I'm going to show you on this scrap of paper what I'm hoping to do with the patchwork. So you initially start by folding along the straight grain, and then you fold along the cross grain and you cut your dress out like this. Like this. So you cut the pattern out on 2 folds. Then what happens is you open it up and you lay it out like this and you sew your side seams. How fun is that? So it's literally an all-in-one piece of fabric. Now, I think because this has like a sort of a similarity to a circle skirt, and also the way that you kind of cut it in that quadrant, definitely is where my mind started to go in terms of patchworking this. So, you know, if we have a seam down our 4 fold lines, I mean, this design itself would be really cool. This sort of like Harlequin jester sort of color blocking where maybe, you know, one side is white and one side is black. Like, I love that idea. But what if we kept going with that concept? So like if this is our center point of our pinwheel and we radiate outwards. One thing that I'm noticing is the way that these lines are stopping at the side seams. So what would happen is when we would go to sew the side seams together, we would kind of get maybe like almost a chevron look at the side seams. And I would like to try to avoid that. So what I was thinking is I could definitely start with a seam that kind of hits right at the armpit, like a raglan seam. And then if I have one more halfway in between, then that way I'm kind of preserving, like the side seam is kind of gonna still maintain that color blocking continuity if we keep this all the same color. And then perhaps we do one more at the sleeve. So let me just color this in and see what we've got to work with. Oh my God, I'm already getting excited about this project, seeing this, seeing this little mock-up. So like, see how perfectly this is gonna, you know, keep our design continuity at the side seams and at the seam under the arm. Everything is going to stay fluid. And every, you know, all of these seams are going to be patchworked, so that'll be really easy to kind of add that little bit of a scallop design within the patchwork there. So that's the plan. I'm going to need to do some pattern mods to raise up this neckline, as well as, you know, further defining these lines and creating our pattern pieces to cut out our garment. I would also be remiss to not acknowledge Our Lady of Black and White, who was definitely a big inspiration for this design. Moira Rose, the TV character from the show Schitt's Creek, played by the incomparable Catherine O'Hara, which sadly enough died suddenly this week. I have to be honest, I'm like a little heartbroken about it. I mean, Cookie from Best in Show, are you kidding me? Like, what a fucking legend. So my heart goes out to her family, and this dress is for you, Catherine. To start with modifying this pattern, I started by just taking a simple woven top pattern that I already had and just applying the front and back collar to my pattern, which is a little confusing because my back pattern piece that appears is a little wider than my front pattern piece when it comes to that pattern. Probably what I'll end up doing is splitting the difference here, but to be perfectly honest, I'm kind of confused about what this should look like, so I don't let that get me down when it comes to pattern work. I just know that I need to put this into fabric form and put this on my body or a dress form to answer my questions better. I know that I'm not gonna like solve it just on paper alone. And then I also started to draw out my lines, and my strategy was just to keep each patchwork line equidistant from each other all the way from the top to the bottom. So that kind of meant that I had to curve this first line, which I wasn't really anticipating. But to me, that's like making sense that visually, I just want this all to be equidistant. And then once I determine my neckline, then I can kind of make sure that everything is perfectly equidistant at that neckline. Because I think if, you know, one little bit's wider here than here, like the eye is gonna notice that. So I think it's time to just mock up a neck, and I think I'm just gonna do it like from here up to figure it out. So let's get to doing that. Good morning. So last night I got my partial mock-up sewn up and I was able to go into the house and try this on, and I instantly noticed a mistake that I made, which is I referenced a pattern that is designed to be pulled over your head, so it's just a wider neckline. And for this garment, I really want it to be like kind of right on my true neckline because I'm going to be clasping it at center front. So at least I had a mock-up on my body and I could mark really quickly where I wanted the new line to be. And this morning I came in and just sewed up that little bit more, did one more try on and kind of fine-tuned my neckline. So now I've got that transferred back onto my pattern here. And now I have to figure out what I'm going to do next. So I need to finish resolving the collar. My hope is I want the collar to continue, I mean, honestly, not unlike what I'm wearing right now. I want it to kind of go up the neck, so it's gonna need to change angles to do that. And because we have all of these patchwork lines, it's gonna be really easy to kind of create this, turtleneck shape here. Do I cut out a whole new mock-up, partial mock-up, and see if I can resolve the scallops, how high they are, how high they're sewn up, etc.? Or do I make use of this one that I already have? I'm not really sure. I guess I can at least start drawing it on the paper. So I guess I'll just keep going. But I think what I want to share the most is like, I am a professional pattern maker and garment maker, but I still like don't know what I'm doing necessarily right now. And I'm not saying that to be self-deprecating. I'm more just saying that like in the process of developing a pattern from scratch or modifying a pattern, there's a lot of unknowns and you shouldn't let that keep you from moving forward. And so I know that I don't have all the answers, but I just need to kind of start trialing and trust the process that I'll figure it out. In terms of figuring out how this little turtleneck scalloped neckline is going to work out, for now I'm just making my little partial muslin mock-up and I'm going up 2 inches and I'm squaring off from like the collar line here. So I'm just kind of taking my 2 inches and kind of going square out from that. And I'm not sure if this is going to be enough, if this is going to be too much, but it at least give me somewhere to start and I can put it on my body and then kind of get some more answers from there. Honestly, as I was sewing this, I really didn't think it was going to work, but it actually works. I think it looks great. I think I just want these scallops to come down a little bit lower. I'm kind of obsessed with this thing. It's like giving, Victorian ruff as well as like tiramisu ladyfingers. Okay, so I just pinned it lower again, and I think I like this better, like the taller ones of this. Like maybe that's a little too short, but
Easy beasy. Oh, she's a gogie. Wow. Oh, she's so cute.
Okay, so I finally got all of my pattern pieces cut out for my patchwork portion of my dress, and Adam has joined me in the studio, and so those are his little bleeps and bloops. Actually, he writes all the music that's on my videos, so if you're ever wondering about that, it's him over there doing that. I was trying to get away with not having to make the full pattern piece for every piece, but after I made this partial one, I kind of felt like it was a little silly and like, am I making my life harder by not doing a full one? So I did figure out a workaround, especially for the really long pieces, which is like, I just made one front piece And then the back piece is partial and I can lay it on top and I can have my back piece, because my front and back like B1, F1 quadrants are the same except for just this little component right at the front. So now I have a little workaround so that I didn't have to use up quite as much paper. The sleeves were a little bit easier because they were already small. So I'm really excited to start cutting out. So I need to clear it off, and I could go with like never watching somebody cut out like on a bed or on carpet like that. It just drives me nuts. But we're gonna make do with what we have, and I'm gonna cut on the floor today. Last night I laid out and cut all of my fabric pieces on the floor, which I still hate cutting on the floor. I laid everything out and I was like, oh, you know, this isn't so bad. And then by the end I was just like low-key exhausted from just like crouching. Anyways, I made a risky decision, which is I decided I wanted to cut everything on the cross grain because this fabric, taffeta, has zero stretch on the cross grain. So this is the cross grain, and you can see that there's like no flex here. But then the straight grain, which is normally the rigid grain, has a flex to it. So we typically have the straight grain going up and down the body because the cross grain is what has, if any ease, it's going to be in the cross grain, and we want that comfort going around our body. And that's usually the rule for cutting on the straight grain. However, if the straight grain has the ease, my instinct is saying, try cutting it on the cross grain. There's still a part of me that's like, feels wrong to go against the rules. Like there is a little bit of a rule follower in me that's like, no, like you have to cut on the straight grain, that's the rule. But I'm taking a risk. I don't know what's gonna happen. Put your bets below about what might happen, and we're just gonna have to see. And in the process of cutting out, I laid my big pieces out on the cross grain, and then my brain must have just like reverted, and I cut all of my like sleeve pieces on the straight grain. And literally as I was cutting out the last piece last night, I was like, dang it. So I've got to recut those pieces. Fortunately, I have a lot of extra fabric, so I can be diligent and cut it correctly. So once I do that, I am going to, service my machine a little bit. I'm going to lubricate it and wipe it down and stuff, put a fresh needle in it, and then we'll get to sewing. My favorite part. Okay, I've got it for the first try on. It does feel just a touch tight, like through the bust, and maybe just a touch tight at the neck, which in combination with the lining is just gonna only get tighter. So I might let out the side seams just a touch, like right here. I had let out the side seams just like 1/8 of an inch, which times 2 is about 1/4 inch on each side, but I just still felt like kind of my upper bust was like just feeling a little tight. And so, and like maybe my back just a touch. So I basically took my princess seams and let those out about 1/8 to 1/4 inch. And so I gained a lot because I have all of these seams that I can play with to let things out. And I'm much happier with the fit. And I also do think that like cutting it on the cross grain is making a difference. I do think it's making it more comfortable, and I do think that that was a good choice. Yay! So I'm happy. The big dilemma I have that it just thought about was like my lining. I was planning on cutting it all in one. Then when I decided to cut on the cross grain, I was like, well, I guess I'll have to have shoulder seams because I won't be able to fit it all in one. Okay, fine. And then I was like, well, in terms of like finishing this kind of neck keyhole detail, it'd be really convenient if I had a center front seam on the red dress. So I'm kind of leaning towards also piecing the red in the same way. And that way I can kind of like make all the same fit adjustments. I was just joking to my husband that I feel like I would make so much money if I just opened a like phone a sewist hotline, or just like while we're in the middle and we have like all these millions of decisions, you can just call somebody and say, okay, like what if I, like I would make millions. I think I'm going to piece the red. So let's get started. Hell no!